They fought without firing a shot. They spoke a language that most Americans never even heard of before. And they built an unbreakable code so badass, the best cryptographers in the Japanese Imperial Navy might as well have been trying to play chess with spaghetti. This is the story of the Navajo Code Talkers, some of the most overlooked heroes of World War II. They didn't charge bunkers, they talked them into oblivion. By 1942, the US military had a serious problem. Japanese were eavesdropping like nosy neighbors with binoculars and a police scanner. We'd send a top secret message and the Japanese would greet us at the beach like they got the invite 2 days early. Code machines like the Sagaba and Purple were solid, but about as field friendly as a washing machine duct taped to a backpack. What we needed was a code that was fast, secure, and didn't require an engineering degree to use it in a foxhole. Enter Philip Johnson. He was a World War I vet, a missionary's kid, grew up speaking Navajo like it was a second skin. He walks into the Marine Corps meeting and basically says, what if we use a language that no one outside of a handful of Native Americans even understands? Spoiler alert, it worked. 4 Navajo men were hauled into Camp Elliott and handed some of the most sensitive information the US military had. They translated it into Navajo and back into English like human encryption machines in cowboy boots. The brass's jaws hit the floor. They quickly signed up 29 more Navajo men so fast it probably caused a paperwork shortage. But translating English into Navajo wasn't enough. Navajo didn't have words for submarine, grenade, aircraft carrier. So these guys invented them. Submarine, it was an iron fish. Grenade, potato. Tank, well, that was a turtle. And then they built a layered code on top of that. It was Navajo plus a battlefield Rosetta Stone that made your average enemy codebreaker feel like they were trying to solve a Rubik's Cube blindfolded and drunk. That actually sounds kind of fun. But these code talkers weren't sipping coffee in a bunker somewhere. They were in the thick of it. From Guadalcanal to Iwo Jima, they were on the front lines, dodging bullets and shouting into radios while people shot artillery shells the size of mailboxes over their heads. At Iwo Jima alone, over 800 Navajo coded messages were sent in the first 48 hours. Not one mistake, not one delay, not one enemy cipher even got close. They were so valuable that some of them were even assigned bodyguards whose unofficial job, no joke, was to shoot the code talkers if it looked like he was about to get captured. That's how crucial this code was. Their tongues were deadlier than grenades. Imagine growing up and herding sheep in the Arizona desert, and 2 months later you're in a jungle learning how to operate a battlefield radio while shells explode like angry gods. The training was relentless. They had to memorize hundreds of Navajo coded terms, learn military protocol, and get comfy with the radio gear the size of a car battery. These weren't just linguists, they were Marines first, nerds second. And once deployed, they transmitted information faster than any cipher machine could. 30 seconds in Navajo beat the pants off of 30 minutes with an Enigma machine. That speed, it saved lives every single day. Navajo was like verbal origami. It folds, tones, and twists the way English just can't. It doesn't have an alphabet, its syntax is more flexible than a gymnast, and pronunciation could tie a linguist's brain in knots. All of this made it the perfect code base. The code talkers didn't just use the language, they weaponized it. Each letter had a corresponding Navajo word. It might be an ant or an apple. Entire phrases were wrapped in metaphors so dense, it might as well have been written by Shakespeare on a coffee bender. The real brilliance, even if you did understand Navajo, you still wouldn't understand the message unless you knew the coded layer that was on top. It was encrypted with cultural depth and battlefield swagger. Japanese code breakers were sharp. They cracked plenty of allied codes, but Navajo, well, they never stood a chance. They recorded it, studied it, tried to reverse engineer it, but understanding Navajo code is kind of like, well, reverse engineering a spaceship with a stone hammer. Even if they'd captured a Navajo speaker, they wouldn't get past the code layered on top of it. It wasn't just unbreakable, it was unknowable. So you've just helped win the war with your voice. And Uncle Sam says, well, that was a cool story. Now, shut up about it. The entire Code Talker program was classified until 1968. These guys went home and back to herding sheep or carpentry or whatever they did, and they couldn't even tell their wives what they did in the war. No medals, no parades, no speeches, just silence. And some of them carried that silence to their grave. It took decades, but in 1982, President Reagan finally gave them a day, August 14th. In 2001, George W. Bush handed out the Congressional Gold Medal to the original 29 Code Talkers. By then, most of them have already passed. Only a few were still alive to hear the country finally say, thank you. Better late than never, but still way too late. Their code, well, it was a military marvel, but their legacy, it's so much bigger. These men took a language that America once tried to erase and used it to save American lives. That's poetic justice with a bayonet. Today, the story is taught in schools, etched in monuments, and whispered in Marine lore. And it should be, because it didn't just win battles. They turned a culture into a superpower. They carried no bazookas, they didn't drive tanks, but their voices thundered louder than any artillery could. The Navajo Code Talkers made history one word at a time. If you've never heard of them before today, well, now you have. So do them a favor, say their names, tell their story. Because sometimes the sharpest weapon isn't a bullet, it's a language no one else understands. This is the real Dave Newton reminding you to subscribe, like, and share. Also, throw some comments below, let me know what the next topic I should talk about. Until then, stand tall.